with information that we think would be a benefit to you as owners of these dams, and also to answer any questions that you might have. So there'll be a question and answer session at the end of the presentation, which should take me about a little less than half an hour to go through. We really wanted to spend more time answering whatever questions you have as best we can answer them, and providing you with whatever help we can. So I'm wanted to introduce the other people who are on the call who are involved in dam safety and ask them to just introduce themselves. So with me is Christina Hofsmith. She's the Deputy Administrator of Compliance and Inspection Office. Stacy Pinto, she's the Environmental Engineer 3 and responsible for the day-to-day program. And Addison Bergman, he's an Environmental Scientist 1 and been coordinating with him on this this workshop. So Christina, if you could just introduce yourself first, please.
Yeah, I'm Christina Hofsmith. I'm the Deputy Administrator for the Office of Compliance and Inspection. I've been in this role for about 1.5 years now. Prior to that, spent 8 years as Senior Legal Counsel for DEM. So I've worked on dams from both sides.
Stacy.
Yes, hi, this is Stacy Pinto. I'm in the Office of Compliance and Inspection Dam Safety Program. I've been here a very long time and truly enjoy it. I love it. A lot of people should know me. I do the day-to-day business of the dam safety programs, the inspections, the reviews, repairs, and here to answer all your questions. Thank you.
And Addison.
Hi, I'm Addison Bergman. I just started working at dams probably 7 to 8 months ago. So excited to meet everybody and look forward to working with everybody throughout the following years.
So I've been involved in this program since this office was created, which was in 1996. We've come a long way in developing the program since that time. And the newest effort that we've undertaken is what we're going to talk about today, which are the spillway capacity analyses. So I'm going to share my screen with all of you. So I've got a PowerPoint presentation I'm just going to go through. Can everybody see the screen?
Yes, I can see it, David.
Okay, all right. So the first slide is just to provide you with the information about who we all are and contact information if you need to get in touch with any of us regarding any issues you have with dams. You have all of our contact information. I would ask that you first contact Stacy or Addison, but obviously if you have a need that is pressing, you can always contact Christina or I, and we'd be happy to try to help you with whatever the issue is. I'm just going to go through an outline of what I'm going to talk about today. First one is going to be the dam inventory, explain the dams that we have, that we regulate, why we regulate them, and where they're located. The second bullet is just going to be about the spillway capacity, dam safety, and climate change. Explain, what our background and what our thinking was on why we did this, and then explain why we chose the dams that we chose for this analysis, and then explain the findings, which I think would be of most interest to all of you. And we've identified which dam owners are affected by the findings from this analysis, and then end it with some next steps to go over. Sorry. So there are 670 dams that the state regulates. There's thousands and thousands of dams in the state. Most of them are very small, 1 foot, 2 foot height. We don't regulate those. We only regulate dams that are 6 feet or more in height, or have 15 acre feet or more of storage capacity. And just for perspective, an acre foot is about 325,000 gallons. Or it's been identified as a high hazard dam, which I'll explain what that is if you don't. Most of you probably already know this, or a significant hazard dam. So if it's not one of those in one of those categories, we do not regulate it, even though it is a dam. Our focus is just on the regulated dams. There are currently 96 high hazard dams and 81 significant hazard dams. Sorry, that's what it was when we did this study. It's changed a little bit, as you note in the footnote, but it's the high hazard and the significant hazard dams that is the focus of our program. There are 494 low hazard dams. We don't spend any effort on low hazard dams except to evaluate whether they should be upgraded to a higher class because some construction or buildings have occurred downstream that might warrant changing the classification. So the focus of our program is high hazard and significant hazard dams. So this is just a identification of where all the high hazard dams are. And a high hazard dam is defined as one that would likely result in the loss of life if the dam were to fail. For those of you who don't know, the hazard classifications have absolutely nothing to do with the current condition of the dam. They are totally separate things. A dam could be in poor condition, but that has nothing to do with its rating, whether it's a high hazard or significant or low hazard. It's strictly based on what would happen if the dam were to fail. That's what these classifications are based on. These are all of the significant hazard dams. So a significant hazard dam is one where if it were to fail, it's not likely to result in a loss of human life, but it would cause major economic damage. And as you can see, almost every city or town has a high hazard or a significant hazard dam within it. And these are all the low hazard dams. As I mentioned earlier, we don't focus on these. When we get complaints about them, we don't respond. We just let people know that it's a low hazard dam and we're not concerned about it from a dam safety perspective. Because low hazard dams, if they fail, are not ones that would likely result in the loss of human life or would they cause any major economic damage. That's why we don't focus on them for this program. I wanted to spend a little bit of time going over this slide because the focus of the spillway capacity analysis was really geared toward this type of dam. So Rhode Island has two basic types of dams. This one, which is an earthen embankment dam, and then we have what we refer to as the run-of-the-river dams. That would be a dam that's on, for example, the Patuxent River, where the whole dam is the concrete spillway that goes across the river. It's not designed like these earthen embankment dams, and the concern about failure of the dams are different for the run-of-the-river dams from the earthen embankment dams. Since most of the spillway analysis dams had to do with earthen embankment dams, I wanted to just focus on this. So as a lot of you know from your dams, you'll have earthen embankment dams. There's a upstream embankment, and then you'll have the crest of the dam, and then you'll have the downstream embankment. There'll be some type of control structure within the impounded area that allows you to lower the water level or raise the water level behind the dam. And there will be some type of spillway that allows the water to flow around the dam and to the downstream channel. And then there'll be some kind of mechanism that keeps the water within the open spillway channel. So when we're talking about concerns about spillway capacity, our concern is that this spillway does not have adequate capacity to pass the kind of storms that we're getting and will be getting in the future. which means that the water will come up and over the dam, and that is really dangerous for an earthen embankment dam. So we wanted to do this study to figure out how many dams in the state can safely pass the kind of storms that we're going to be getting in the future. So the interest for this have to do with the March 2010 flooding. The August 2014 flooding event in Islip, New York, and just the overall increase in rainfall over the years. In the March 2010 storm, we had 2 significant hazard dams and 3 low hazard dams that catastrophically failed in Rhode Island. Fortunately, no one was injured, but it was a wake-up call to further address dams in Rhode Island. We think, we can't be positive, but all of those were earthen embankment dams, and we believe that the cause of the failure was overtopping. And that directly has to do with the spillway capacity of the dam. So that was the basis for doing this study. We wanted to know what other dams were in danger of overtopping if we got that kind of a storm again. So just to give you some more information, so in August 2014, 13.5 inches of rain fell in 24 hours in Islip, which is greater than a 500-year storm. And Islip is about 86 miles from Rhode Island. So it was very easy to have that storm drop that much rain on Rhode Island. It just happened to hit south of us. We don't really have didn't have a whole lot of information about the spillway capacities of the dams. We didn't know what they could handle as far as flows go. And we asked NOAA to model what would have happened if that Islip storm had struck Rhode Island, and the results were that it would have caused record floods on pretty much all of the major rivers. And we know from what climatologists are telling us that rainfall intensities are on the rise. We see it ourselves with the kind of storms we're getting and how quickly the rain falls and how much falls. So we have a very real concern about the dams and whether they're capable of handling this amount of water. So DEM is responsible by statute for ensuring that all the dams are maintained in a safe condition. And in making that decision, or when we're trying to evaluate whether a dam is safe, what we are really looking for is whether it's unsafe. Any condition is unsafe. And unsafe, as defined in our rules, is it poses an unreasonable risk of failure. If we determine based on our evaluation of the information we've received that the condition poses an unreasonable risk of failure, we will determine that dam to be unsafe, and we will order the dam owner to take action to address that unsafe condition. It's one aspect of the program that the department is really diligent in enforcing. We don't want to have any unsafe dams, and we will act to make sure that the owner addresses unsafe dams if that situation occurs. So among the conditions that would result in this determination is inadequate spillway capacity. So if we determine that the spillway cannot safely pass the kind of storm that we're expecting it to have to deal with, we're going to determine that that dam is unsafe and require the owner to take an action. So I wanted to give you that as background. We have not yet taken any action against the dam owner for inadequate spillway capacity. We did this study back in 2017 and got the results. We had intended to make them available to everybody to have this workshop, but we had issues with the pandemic, and then we had resource issues with staffing, so we never had a chance to have this workshop and share this information with you. So I'm glad that we finally have had a chance to do that and have conversations with you about this. This is some information we got from the Association of State Dam Safety Officials. That's it's a collection of all of the individual 50 states. I think all the states are a part of this association now. We pay dues to the association, and they publish different dam safety related documents and information. So what they published here is from 2010 to 2019, all of the incidents that they were made aware of that resulted in a failure of the dam and what caused the dam to fail. And as you'll see at the top, the majority of them are caused by overtopping. The water just comes over the top of the embankment and washes it away. And the primary reason on the, if you'll notice on the slide on the right, why the actual incident happened, it's because of hydrologic or flooding. So basically, there's too much water for these dams to handle. The spillways aren't capable of doing it. It comes over the top of the embankment, and the dam gets destroyed. This is by far the biggest cause, and this is why we wanted to do this study. Most states require that new and existing dams pass at least a half of PMF. So for those of you who don't know, that's the probable maximum flood, PMF. It's the most water that the watershed is capable of handling based on the size storms that they would expect that the watershed could generate. So they are looking at the half of the PMF as the storm to look at. Those are expensive studies to do. It costs about $10,000 for every dam to do one. So for all of the dams we have, that would have been, about $1.8 million. We didn't have that kind of money, but we did have the ability to do an analysis for a fairly limited amount of money of the 100-year and 500-year storms. Now, obviously, those are way less than the 1,000-year and the half of PMF storms, but at least it gives us some information that we can share with all of you about whether the dams are at least capable of passing those smaller storms. And if you remember from what I said earlier, the Islip Long Island storm was a 500-year storm. And these storms are not 100 and 500 years anymore. The data hasn't caught up with current storms. So when you look at something that says it's a 500-year storm event, it's not really that anymore. So we were able to have GZA evaluate using existing modeling the 100-year and 500-year storms. And we did that for the 169 of the high hazard and significant hazard dams in our inventory. So of the total, there were 171 high and significant hazard dams, 96 high hazard, 81 significant, and they analyzed 89 high hazard dams and 80 significant hazard dams. We excluded 7 high hazard dams and 1 significant hazard dam from the study, and I'll explain in the next slide why we chose to exclude those particular dams. So these are the dams that were excluded. As you'll see, they're all high hazard except for the Woonsocket Falls Dam. Several of them are regulated by FERC. Because they're regulated by FERC, they don't come under state jurisdiction, so we didn't evaluate those particular dams. The ones that are owned by DEM, Stillwater, Olney, and Bowdish, and Current Upper, those are all repaired, and we know that they can at least provide 500-year storm coverage, or they have overtopping protection, which I'll talk about a little bit later. So we're not worried about them washing away. And the other one is Current Lower, which is currently under design to be repaired. So we didn't include that one because we knew it's going to get repaired and have the same kind of protection as these other dams. But all the other dams that weren't these were part of the study. So these were the results. Of that 89 high hazard dams, 25% of them could not pass the 100-year storm, 22 dams. So we considered those to be the highest problem category, and we called those Category 1 dams. 17% could pass the 100-year storm, but they could not pass the 500-year storm. There were 15 dams that were in that category. So those are the second dams of concern. So we called those Category 2. Fortunately, 58% of the dams could pass the 500-year storm. So that was good. So 52 dams out of the 89 that are high hazard could at least pass the 500-year storm. So that's that one. Those we considered Category 3 dams. And I just, these next couple of charts are just going to give you a breakdown of who is affected by this. So the Category 1 owners, 2 of them are owned by DEM, 1 is owned by Providence Water, 3 are owned by the town of Lincoln, 1 City of Newport, 1 West Warwick. 10 of them are privately owned, and 4, as of the time we did this, we don't know who the owner is. Of the Category 2 dams, DEM owns 1, the Narragansett Bay Commission owns 1, the towns of Johnston and Lincoln own 1 each, Newport owns 1, and 10 of them are privately owned. And the Category 3 owners, as you can see, half of them are privately owned, and the others are owned by the cities or towns or water suppliers, or DEM owns a couple. The significant hazard dams. So there were 80 dams that we analyzed. 36% of them failed to pass the 100-year storm, 29 dams. We put those in Category 4. 9% of them couldn't pass the 500-year storm, but they could pass the 100-year storm. There were 7 dams that were in that category. And 44 dams, which is another good thing, 55% could pass the 500-year storm. And we put those in Category 6. So as I mentioned earlier, we're concerned about safety. Obviously, high hazard dams are more of a concern to us than significant hazard dams, because those could result in a loss of life. So those got higher category ratings, because those are the ones that the department will focus on first. Let's see. So the Category 4 dams, as you can see, again, a big chunk of them are privately owned, and another really big chunk, we don't know who owns these. And then there's a smaller amount owned by water suppliers, the cities and towns, and DEM. Category 5 owners, again, a big chunk of them are unknown. We just haven't had the ability to find out who these owners are, and another third of them are privately owned. And then the Category 6 ones, half of them are privately owned, and the others are distributed between water suppliers, cities and towns. DOT owns a couple, and DEM owns a couple. So next steps, what we need to do is work with the owners to deal with these dams. So if you're in a Category 1, 2, 4, or 5, these are the 5 things that you can do, or will have to do, to address this particular issue that we have. You have to demonstrate that the dam should be reclassified. And we've had several owners come in and say that, you know what, we don't think that the dam is properly classified as high hazard or significant hazard. The modeling is much better than it was when DEM first determined these classifications 20 years ago. We can do the modeling and show you that it's not in the class that you think it is, and that it should be in a lower class. So that's one option. You also can increase the spillway size so that it properly can handle the amount of flow that is expected to occur. You can make the dam higher, accomplish the same purpose, keep the dam from overtopping. You can remove or partially remove the dam. We've had some owners, mostly towns, wanting to do this. The Bristol County Water Authority had 2 dams that it acted on, one that it removed totally and one that it partially removed so that it was no longer considered a significant hazard dam. So that's how they address those dams. Or you can armor the dam. As I mentioned in one of the earlier slides, there's a couple of DEM-owned dams that have overtopping protection so that if the water does flow over the earthen embankment, it won't wash it away. And if you, as I said, because they're unsafe, we have the ability to issue a notice of violation and assess administrative penalties. So if the owners don't act, this may be where the department heads as far as trying to enforce this deficiency in the dams. This slide just gives you a breakdown of where these dams are located and what they are. So the high hazard dam list has to do with categories 1 and 2. The significant hazard dam list has to do with categories 4 and 5. And we have them color coded so that it's easy for, or easier to identify which ones are owned by cities and towns, privately owned, owned by state agencies, or we don't know who the owner is. And the same for the significant hazard list. So if you wanted to quickly see whether your dam is within one of these categories, you can do that with this slide. The category 3 dams. So if I mentioned earlier, you need to be able to show for a high hazard dam that you can safely pass the half a PMF storm. Since the study that we did only demonstrated whether you can pass the 500-year storm, the owners are going to need to either one, demonstrate that the dam should be reclassified, or they're going to have to perform a spillway capacity analysis for the half a PMF storm. And like I said, those run about $10,000, or it was $10,000 the last time we checked. And again, if you don't act, it might lead DEM to issue a notice of violation and assess a penalty because we would consider this to be a maybe unsafe condition and require some further analysis to be done. These are all the category 3 dams. Again, color coded so that it's easier for you to identify which ones fall into what category for the dam that you care about. Category 6 dams. So if you're a category 6 dam, you don't have to do anything. Your dam safely passes the 500-year storm. It's a significant hazard dam, so you're good. Just like this little guy here, you don't have to worry about it. And these are all of the dams that fall into that category. And this is just a cute slide that Stacy had added in here that I'll just end this with. Now I'm going to stop sharing the screen and we can get into a conversation about questions that you have, if you have any to share. One thing that I did want to mention, it's not part of the slide presentation, but I wanted to just go over the possible sources of funding that are available. There is no state funding available to repair dams. There are two potential sources of funding under the federal programs. One is they're both for high hazard dams. So if you don't have a high hazard dam, there's no funding available for you. If you have a high hazard dam, there's a federal program. It's called the High Hazard Potential Dam Grant Program. It may only be in existence for one more year. It depends on whether they renew it or not. In order to be eligible, you have to be a high hazard dam. The dam safety program has to have identified your dam is unsafe. You have to have certain plans and procedures in place in order to be eligible. And you have to have is a cost sharing involved in it. So it's a bit of a cumbersome grant to apply for. And I don't know if it'll be around after, I think Stace, you said 1 year, maybe more, and then it might not get renewed. There's another source of funding that the Army Corps has provided, and the state infrastructure bank is going through the process of applying to see if they can get that money. It would be a $25 million pot of money that they would make available. And it's not a grant program, it's a low interest loan program. So you'd have to pay it back, but you wouldn't have to pay it back at the same interest rate that you would get if you went to a private bank. Those are the only sources of funding that I know of that might be available to help city, the owners of the dams to deal with these issues. So at that, I will just end the presentation and open it up to any questions if anybody wishes to ask any questions. Or if you have any questions to put in the chat, you can do that. We can talk about them as we get them. Yes, Bob, you have a question.
Joe.
No.
Just wondering on timeline, considering looking at our dams, it's probably a few $100 million to do all this stuff that would have to be done. I think for North and Southeastern Pond alone, we're something around 65 million.
Yeah, so there's no time frame for when the department might decide to do anything. The first step was just to share with you the information so you have it. Part of the reason for that is that we know some of the dam owners are going through an evaluation to upgrade or repair their dams. So we wanted them to have the information in case they wanted to make that part of their repair. Stace, you had something to add?
No, we just have a question from this side when you're ready.
Oh, okay. Yeah, so Bob, we don't, there's no time frame for any of this. It was just at this point to just provide information to everybody. Okay, Stace, what's the question?
Yeah, hi, my name's Joe. I had a question on the category 3 dams. I know you had said that the vertical height of the reservoir or whatever was a 6 foot between the significant and the category 2 to category 3. As far as the basin, I think you said it was a 6 foot minimum on the between category 2 and category 3. My question is, after you get less than 6 feet, how do you break that down on the category 3? You know what I mean? Category 3 dams.
So the categories don't have anything to do with the height of the dam. So each dam in this is categorized or classified as high hazard, significant hazard, or low hazard. I meant as far as you had said that 6 foot the basin, not the height of the dam itself. I'm talking about the reserve capacity of the dam. I think you had said that it was 6 feet, or it had to be less than 6 feet between the 2 and the 3. No,
and then so many gallons, or maybe I'm wrong.
Yeah, so what I was talking about there is how we determine what classification the dam would be. That doesn't have anything to do with what category you ended up in. So what is the classification of your dam that you're concerned about? Which, do you know?
High hazard.
It's a high hazard dam. So for a high hazard dam, you have to safely be able to pass the half a PMF storm. That's the standard that you have to meet. And if you're in category 1, that means that you couldn't safely pass even the 100-year storm. If you were category 2, you could pass the 100-year storm, but not the 500-year storm. And if you're in category 3, you're not in horrible shape. You can at least pass the 500-year storm. We just don't know whether you can pass the half a PMF storm. That's why we wanted you to do the study to figure that out. And that study, based on our last estimates, was about $10,000 to do that. So it could be that your dam is perfectly fine. It can pass the half a PMF storm. We just don't know whether it can or not if you're in category 3.
Okay.
Did that answer your question?
It did.
Changing the classification,
We can talk about that. All right.
Dan, you have a question?
Yes, are these slides going to be available to us?
Yes, yes, we're
Okay.
gonna publish this and have it available so anybody can view it anytime. I think we'll put it on our DM website so you can access them whenever
great.
you wish.
And also, who would make the determination whether a dam could be removed or not?
Who makes the determination?
Yes.
So if you wanted to remove a dam, you need to submit an application to the department. It'd have to go through our wetland program because there would obviously be wetland impacts of removing a dam. From a dam safety perspective, obviously there's no issue with getting approval from us to remove a dam, but you need to get wetlands permit to do that.
Okay. Thank you.
I have a question.
Sure.
This report that I received, is this final report or this can be challenged to GZA?
I didn't hear the last part of what you said. Is it a final report or is it what?
Can this report be challenged? Can you?
It's an informational report. It's not something that you can challenge right now. Nobody's taking an action based on it. If the department decided, for example, I don't know what your dam is, but if the department decided that it wanted to issue a violation notice because of the findings in that report, then you could challenge what's in the report. But right now, we're just providing it to you for information, not to take any kind of legal action regarding it. So if you wanted to hire your own engineer and have them evaluate your dam and they came up with a different conclusion, then you could certainly submit that to us and say, hey, our engineer doesn't, the information from our engineer doesn't match what GZA's findings are, then we would evaluate that.
David, do you have a list of engineering firms that can do the half of PFM storm analysis?
We can't recommend anybody, but we can tell you all of the consulting engineers that we work with that are capable of doing that, and you can decide, which of them to choose if you wish.
Is PAR
I think there's probably like a half a dozen that are capable of doing that in the state. PAR is one of them. GZA, obviously. There's quite a few others I think that can do this too.
At what point do these have to be done?
So I'm not sure who was asking that question.
Steve with the Green Company.
There's no time frame, as I mentioned. We're just providing this to you for information. If the department decides to take enforcement, then we would issue you a notice. I imagine we'd start with an informal notice, more of a letter form saying we need you to do this, and we'll give you some reasonable deadline to do it by before we would issue penalties or anything. Our goal is not to penalize people. We just wanted to get the dams in a safe condition, and we know that it costs a lot of money, and we know that there's no funding really available to do this, but we wanted to just get information out to everybody. So I would imagine we would start with some kind of a letter with some deadline to get it done by.
David,
Dan, go ahead, Stace.
in the chat, Mark wrote, can you send the presentation? The presentation will be on the dam safety website in a couple of days. If that's okay, you can see it by going to the dam safety website. And Matt Black wrote, at Slocum Reservoir, we just had a repair to our dam in 2022. That brings it in compliance with the half PMF capacity. Will we need to do another analysis or resubmit the paperwork? I would say if they have that analysis to submit it to us, we can add it to their file and update their dam accordingly.
Yep, that's correct. Steve, did you have another question? Your hand is up. I don't know if it was from the earlier question or not.
No, I don't.
I don't know if we have any other questions from anybody here. I mean, if you, obviously our goal is to try to work with everybody and educate and help as best we can. So if you come up with a question that you didn't think about during this call, you can always reach out to us. We'll be happy to try to answer whatever questions we can answer. Stacy?
Do you have any regulations for specifically for high hazard dams? What the design criteria you're looking for?
We have rules that are in place. They do not specify a half a PMF for high hazard dams and 500-year storm for a significant hazard dam. We have draft rules that we're going to be publishing soon that'll have those specified. This is pretty standard now across all of the states that they use the half a PMF for a high hazard dam and 500-year storms for significant hazard dams. But right now our rules do not specify that. So,
okay, and what in your rules takes into consideration debris? I have quite a lot of debris problems.
So this was based on theoretical. It's meant that the dam owners will maintain the dam so that you don't have blockages occurring in the spillway, so that it didn't take into account like what would happen if the spillway was half blocked with trees or brush or debris. It's assuming that the spillway is clear of debris.
Yeah, well, see, that's the problem, because you always get into this issue with the DEM, because you got the wildlife issues telling you can't clear the debris, and yet you got safety issues to deal with the dam. What are you going to do to get the dam owners the authority to deal with debris and not have to fool around with the wetlands?
So anything that has to do with dam safety, maintaining the spillway, clearing the vegetation off of the embankment, you can do that without a permit from DEM. The rules allow you to do that. We expect you to do that. It's when you move beyond what is necessary from a dam safety perspective that you run into a need to get a wetland permit. So if you're trying to clear debris, say from your spillway, it's clogged with trees or brush, you can go do that anytime you want. There's nothing stopping you from doing that. We want you to do that. And the same with clearing vegetation on the earthen embankment. We want you to mow the vegetation and remove the trees and remove the brush. There is a limit to how far you can go, though, without.
But what is the limit?
So it's on the downstream side of the embankment, it's 15 feet beyond the toe of the slope. So you can go 15 feet beyond where the toe is downstream and clear, and that would be your limit. If you go beyond that, you need a permit because we don't believe that's necessary from a dam safety perspective. On the upstream side of the embankment, you can clear all the way, as far as you can see down to the toe. And we obviously want the top of the dam, the crest cleared and kept cleared. So for clearing purposes.
What about trees, toppled trees that are out in the pond and that are only in a storm are only going to get in the water column and make their way over to the spillway and plug it up?
Are the trees alive or are the trees dead?
Trees are probably dead, blown over. You always have debris falling over. I live in a wooded condition. There's constantly trees dying, and I've got a lot of driftwood. All of these are potential sources of plugging up the spillway and causing the dam to overtop.
So the wetland rules allow you to remove dead trees. You can do that anytime you want, as long as you follow the requirements to make sure you're minimizing impacts. Cutting down live trees is a little bit different. If you're doing it for a safety reason, you can. We can provide you and work with you on the rules to make sure you're compliant. So, I mean, it can get a little complicated as to what you can and can't do. So if you wanted to just work with us and just show us, here's what I want to do, we can come up with something that would allow you to go ahead and do that without getting in trouble for violating the rules. Because we want you to maintain the dams in safe condition. And if part of that is to remove debris, especially dead debris, that would be something we'd want to work with you on.
My experience is when there's a storm, it's a big storm, especially the storm in the fall of 2007, you're just fighting debris. And, I know this agency, you're fanatics about wildlife and can't change anything, but, I'm not really impressed with the approach you're taking here, because you're not encouraging dam owners. You don't want to give us the authority to take care of our dams properly. And debris is a big, big issue with me, and I'm sure I'm not the only one that has this problem. So it really needs to be addressed, and the authority needs to be given to the dam owners to properly maintain their dams. And it isn't 10 feet away from the dam. It's got to be 1,500 feet from the mouth of the dam, because it just, when you get into a storm situation, the debris gets in the water column and it goes right to the spillway.
I know. Like I said, if it's dead trees, I think that you would be fine in cutting them and removing them. If they're live trees, you might be able to do it. It depends on the extent of the number of trees you want to get rid of, and how you wanted to do it. We can certainly work with you on that. We're trying to be working with the dam owners to try to make sure the dams are safe, not to pose impediments to that process. So I would encourage you to just work with Stacy on that. If you have a plan on which trees you want to remove, how you want to do it, we can work with you and the wetlands program staff to get you whatever permission you need so you can do that. If you need any, you may be able to just do it without our permission. Stace, were you going to say something?
Yeah, I was gonna go back. There was another question in the chat.
Okay.
Chief Heiss, how are the unknown owners being handled?
Yeah, we have a problem with that, Chief, because we can't find lawyers who are willing to go and do the title work that we need to figure out who these owners are. It's cumbersome, it's difficult because it goes back, many numbers of years. And, we've tried several times to go out to bid and get title attorneys, and we can't find anybody who's willing to do this work. So that's why we have a lot of them that we just don't know who the owners are. That doesn't mean that there isn't an owner. We just don't know who they are. They have not been identified. Some of them probably don't have owners. We know that there's at least one or two that, was a company, the company's defunct. Nobody's purchased the property. It's just kind of sitting there in limbo. So there really is no legal owner to some of these dams. We just don't know how extensive that is. Linda, I see you have your hand raised. I don't know if Linda's still there. There any other questions? As I see there's one in the chat, Stace. Is that one we already answered?
Yes, I think we've answered them all in the chat.
Okay. Linda, did you have a question?
I do have a comment. Can you
Okay.
hear me?
Yes.
Okay. This was about the debris and our concern for our dam, which is kind of in that category 6, and we are working on a spillway clearing. But most of the debris blockage for us is either under DOT's problem because it's the culvert under a road, a state road, and then the river downstream where there's a lot of blockage.
Okay.
How do we access that? What do we do? That's what causes the toe of our dam to back up.
Have you had any conversations with DOT about clearing the blockages or
They have not responded.
Yeah. Okay. We can try to work with you and get DOT to respond. We have issues trying to get DOT to respond sometimes to us too. But I would suggest you just work with Stacy to see if we can get DOT aware.
Okay. And then what about downstream that at the properties, as the river goes through their properties?
It depends on how far downstream you are. At some point, we're not concerned about it causing backups all the way to the dam. But again, if it's on property that's privately owned, we'd have to try to work with you and whoever the property owner is to get access in there to clear out the spillway channel so that it doesn't back up. And we can try to do that if there's an issue there.
Okay, thank you. We are in contact with Stacy.
Okay. Yeah, I wish there was a pot of money available to all of you because I know how expensive it is to fix dams. The DM has spent millions of dollars on each of the dams that we've been upgrading. And, I don't know how private property owners are supposed to be doing this, or even cities and towns without some form of assistance. Aaron, you have a question?
Yes, I'm from Boone Lake, which is on that list as a category 3 currently. And just to kind of wrap my head around what we're talking about here is our ability to get rid of the water through our spillway, correct?
Yes, it would be the ability
large-
of the spillway to safely pass the flood flows that would be coming down.
Okay. Just, I guess I can work with Stacy on this, but back in that January storm that we had an immense amount of water come through our dam that ended up flooding our road. I tried to get a hold of the local town in Exeter to have a discussion with them about, I'm not able to get enough water out to control the level without destroying essentially this bridge that we have here. So I think I have a, bigger issue outside of this, but I just wanted to make sure I understood this spillway part. Our spillway is what I think kind of large, but definitely learned during that January storm this year that we definitely have a capacity issue, because I have another dam upstream from us that essentially filled us within hours, and I couldn't get rid of enough because the bridge that the water goes under wasn't allowing the water to flow freely. But but I just wanted to make sure I understood this spillway report.
So you're a category 3, so that means that you're a high hazard dam and you're capable of passing the 500-year storm. We're just not sure you can pass the half a PMF storm. So,
yes. Yep.
So you're in better shape than most of the dam owners who have high hazard dams. So that's at least something.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Oh, just a question, Aaron. So when you had the January storm, did the water come over the top of the embankment?
No, it didn't overtop.
Okay.
I was able to control it with our gate and the spillway. But it was the first time in my experience as the gatekeeper here that we had that much that quickly.
Yeah.
Because we had another dam upstream of us open up.
Okay.
And I couldn't get rid of enough fast enough, but it didn't overtop though. But our riprap and the top of the dam, or I should say, let me back up, that the water level itself compared to the top of the dam is not that significant. It's maybe 2 feet, if that. And the spillway does a good job, but if it does get to that point, it would overtop very easily.
Okay. Yeah, that's the thing that really frightens me, just because of the intensity of these storms and how fast they form and how much water they just drop. It's just unbelievable what we're seeing now. So, and this is only going to get worse as time goes on.
We have a question, David.
Could you
Okay.
explain to me why the DEM did not include the ability of the drain valve and the criteria that the amount of water that the drain valve could contribute in reducing the flows through the dam in its estimations? It only used the spillway.
So we rely on the spillway because there are reasons why the gate may not be adequate. For example, it may be malfunctioning. The gatekeeper may not be able to get there in time, especially if it's a big storm. So we've had this happen in the 2010 storms where They go to try to open the gates, it won't work, they can't get equipment. So we don't want to be relying on the gates themselves and the people to have to get out there during a major storm to make sure that the dam is protected. The spillway is really designed to do that purpose. That's what the spillway is there for. The gates are meant to provide the ability to lower the pond if you want to do inspections, if you need to repair it, that sort of thing. It's not really meant to be there as another means of reducing the flow. You can do that, and it would be good if you could, but we didn't want to rely on that, especially during major storms.
If a person could prove that they could make that work, could they have their analysis adjusted to take that into consideration?
Potentially. I mean, if you could show that the concerns that we'd have about access and ability to function during a major storm wouldn't be an issue because of the situation with your particular dam, then yes, potentially. Aaron, did you have another question, or is your hand up from the previous one? Does anyone else have any questions? Like Stacy said, though, this will be on our website in a couple of days. So anybody who didn't have a chance to participate, or you want to just look at this further, it'll be available for you within a couple of days. With that, I will end the presentation. It's 12 o'clock. Everybody can go get something to eat for lunch. Thank you for your time and your questions, and we look forward to working with you as we go forward to try to deal with this issue. Thanks.